What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of J&D Sports Talk. Today I'm going to be giving you my NFL Week 13 reactions. It was a good week of football, very interesting. We're also going to be talking about college football and some things going around other sports. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Alright, first game of the Thanksgiving slate. We got the Chicago Bears going to Detroit to take on the Lions. This was the, I guess you can say, the towel in the UFC for Matt Eberflus, as he got fired after this game. In the end of the game, the Bears had the ball with like 37 seconds left. They just got done with a play, and they took forever to do whatever they tried to do. They even kick a field goal. They had a timeout, but they didn't call it. They threw a deep pass. Clock ran out. Terrible clock management there by the Bears. That got Eberflus fired, and they are going to begin their head coaching search pretty soon. I would expect them to be looking for offensive coaches. Maybe, Ben Johnson is a hot name in the NFL. I've heard rumors about Arthur Smith. I've heard, some college coaches that can come up and take that job. And I've even heard some people say Thomas Brown, which, when that could happen. But yeah, as far as the game goes, Chicago started terrible. Like, their first half was really, really bad. They were unwatchable in the first half, pretty much. But second half, they got it together. They played good offense. Meanwhile, for Detroit, this wasn't their best game, but they still squeaked out a game. I feel like I've said that line for a lot of good teams this year. It wasn't their best game, but they still squeaked out a win, and that applies here. Caleb Williams had 3 touchdowns, 97 passer rating. DJ Moore had a good game. He had 97 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen caught 2 touchdowns, and Kevin Byard, former Titan, led the team in tackles with 10. Chicago had 2 sacks, a half by Austin Booker, Jack Sanborn, and 1 by Gravon Dexter Sr. Chicago had 2 tackles for loss and 5 pass deflections. They also had 3 QB hits. Carlos Santos didn't attempt a field goal, which obviously at the end of the game should have, to send it to overtime, but they didn't. 64,275 people in attendance on Thanksgiving. By the way, happy Thanksgiving, guys. For the Lions, Jared Goff, he threw 2 touchdowns, 100 passer rating. David Montgomery had 21 carries, 88 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs had 9 carries, 87 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 5 catches, 73 yards. Brian Branch led the team in tackles with 6. The Lions had 5 sacks. They had a lot of pressures in this game. 1.5 by Zadarius Smith, 2 by DJ Reader, 1 by Aquan Muhammad, and a half by Ezekiel Turner. Not missing any, I don't think. Yeah. 7 tackles for loss, 5 pass deflections, 10 QB hits, and Jake Bates went 3 for 4 on field goals. Like I said, though, this wasn't the Lions' best game, but they still squeaked out a win. Meanwhile, for Chicago, Ryan Poles has been a good GM in my opinion, but the hiring of Shane Waldron and Eberflus was not good, and yeah, so seeing a couple teams. There's 3 head coach openings right now. I'm pretty sure New Orleans has one. They have Darren Rizzi at interim right now. Chicago, obviously, they have Thomas Brown at interim right now, but I don't think he's gonna stay. And the Jets, they have, what's his name? Jeff Ulbrich. That's their interim head coach. But, there's a lot of head coach openings for a lot of people. There's a lot of hot names going around, and we'll have to see who gets hired. But, yeah, this was kind of crappy in the beginning, but this was a good game to kick off Thanksgiving. Chicago drops to 4-8. Meanwhile, Detroit improves to 11-1 on a 9-game win streak. Moving on, we got the New York Giants going to Dallas for the second game of the Thanksgiving slate. Giants lose 20-27. Giants drop to 2-10, and Dallas drops to 5-7. or improves to 5-7. I mean, Giants and Cowboys, Cooper Rush versus Drew Lock. Not the ideal Thanksgiving game, but I'm glad Dallas got the win. Drew Lock threw an interception. Look, quarterback is not the problem in New York. I think it's pretty evident by now. It's the culture, the work ethic. Just nobody's really on the same page, and it's just not good over there in New York. I feel like there's divide between the GM and the players, upper management, stuff like that. We should have kept Saquon. That's a big one. But anyway, Drew Lock led the team in rushing. 4 carries, 57 yards. He scored a touchdown. Tyrone Tracy ran one in two. Malik Neighbors obviously led the team in receiving. 8 catches, 69 yards. Tyler Newman had 12 tackles, and Giants had no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 9 pass deflections. Only 3 QB hits, so their pass rush, which is supposed to be good, didn't do much. And Graham Gano went 2 for 2 on field goals. 92,196 people in attendance for this game. Meanwhile, for the Cowboys, Cooper Rush, he had a decent game. He threw a touchdown, almost 200 yards. Rico Dowdle scored his first touchdown of the year, I'm pretty sure, or his second, something like that. He had 22 carries, 112 yards. Cavante Turpin, 4 catches, 53 yards. Brandon Cooks scored a touchdown. And Eric Kendricks led the team in tackles with 10. They had 6 sacks, 1 by Eric Kendricks, 1 by Donovan Wilson, 1 by Asa Adewuza. I don't know how to say that name. 1.5 by Micah Parsons, a half by Mozzie Smith, and a sack by Carl Lawson. 5 tackles for loss and 5 pass deflections. DeMarvin Overshown had a 23-yard pick six, and Brendan Aubrey went 2 for 2 on field goals. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Giants, there's more problems than just quarterback. They have a line problem. They have a couple. It's Giants. They have a lot of problems, actually. But, meanwhile, for Dallas, they're trying to get back on track, and 2 wins in a row is going to give them some momentum. All right, moving on, we got the Miami Dolphins going to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Dolphins lost this game by 13 points, 30-17. Dolphins dropped to 5-7. Meanwhile, the Packers improved to 9-3. This was another game where the Dolphins claim they're going to change the narrative, but they don't. They can't play in the cold. It's stupid. So they're not going to be good in the playoffs if they make it. I'm out on the Dolphins this year. Like I said, they're not going to do anything in the playoffs when they play like this. But in the cold, Dolphins, 2 touchdowns by Tua, almost 400 yards, 265 yards to be exact. Raheem Mostert, no run game. I'm not even going to mention anything from there. Jonnu Smith had another good game. He's been having a secret good season. 10 catches, 113 yards. Tyreek and Devin Achane caught a touchdown. Tyrell Dodson led the team in tackles with 10. Miami had no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 pass deflections. And Jason Sanders was 1 for 1 for field goal from 33. And there were 77,599 people in attendance for this game. Meanwhile, for the Packers, Jordan Love threw 2 touchdowns, 274 yards. Josh Jacobs ran one in. Tucker Kraft, 6 catches, 78 yards. Right behind him, Josh Jacobs, 4 catches, 74 yards. And Isaiah McDuffie and Quay Walker both led the team in tackles with 10. Packers had 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, and 3 pass deflections. Brandon McManus went 3 for 3 on field goals. Long was from 46. And yeah, like I said, Dolphins can't play in the cold. That's been a proven narrative by now. I think Tua's like 0-10 in the cold or something when the temperature's below 40. It's something like that. And meanwhile, for the Packers, they've been playing good football, I believe. Let me check their win streak here. They are on a 3-game win streak, but they've won 4 They won a lot out of their last. They won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of their last 8. So Packers are one of those teams that are hot right now. But it mainly matters when you're hot from like December, end of December till February. Whichever teams are hot then, make the most noise in the playoffs. All right, next up we got Black Friday football. We got the Kansas City Chiefs winning 19-17 over the Raiders. Raiders dropped to 2-10. Meanwhile, the Chiefs improved to 11-1, which they realistically could be like 7-5. Raiders had a chance. They looked like they were going to win this game. They were in field goal range late in the game, but they snapped the ball. Miscommunication goes off Aiden O'Connell, and it's recovered by Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City just finds a new way to win every week. It's like the Bears and the Chiefs are the exact opposite, and it's funny. The Bears lose in the dumbest ways, but the Chiefs win in the weirdest ways. You know what I mean? So, like I said, a lot of talent, but blocked field goal. They went off that. They went off a missed pass interference. They went off a toe in week 1 against the Ravens. Against my team, they won off one good run and the game-winning field goal. And now this one, they went over a botched snap. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it works in January. But, I mean, for the Raiders, you had a chance to beat this team. This was probably one of your best games you played all year. Aiden O'Connell had a good game, 2 touchdowns. Sincere McMormick led the team in rushing with 12 carries, 64 yards. Brock Bowers had a really good game. He's having a really good rookie season. Honestly, he might be my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year, but we'll see. 10 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. Trey Tucker also caught a 58-yard touchdown. And Robert Spleen led the team in tackles with 9. And Raiders had 4 sacks, a half by Adam Butler, 1.5 by Kaylavon Chaisson, 1 by Max Crosby, and 1 by Zach Carter. 5 tackles for loss and 3 pass deflections, 12 QB hits. And Daniel Carlson was 1 for 1 from field goals from 27. There were 73,627 people in attendance. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes, he threw a touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco led the team in rushing. Not much rushing for the Chiefs, though. They really threw the ball a lot, 46 times. So, DeAndre Hopkins, 4 catches, 90 yards. And Justin Watson caught a touchdown. Nick Bolton led the team in tackles with 11. And 3 sacks, 2 by Chris Jones and 1 by George Karlaftis. 6 tackles for loss and 6 pass deflections, 4 QB hits. And Matthew Wright was 4 for 5 on field goals, long from 42. So the Chiefs scored 1 touchdown, and that was by Justin Watson. Then after that, they got 4 field goals, so 7, 10, 13, 16, 19. And they got the win. So whatever it takes for Kansas City. Moving on, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Carolina to take on my Panthers. This was another roller coaster for us. This was a gut-punching loss. This was not fun to lose, especially the way we played. We had less turnovers before overtime, or just even in general. We played way better than Tampa did. We should have won realistically like 30-10. People who watched the game would know that. Would know Carolina should have won, not just 13-year-old box score watchers, but people who claim they're football fans and don't even watch their own team games. But, like I said, should have won this game. There's no way around it. I mean, I'm not that kind of guy, but refs can't see a touchdown that's right in front of them. Adam Thielen caught the ball, got an elbow and a knee down. Ball did not move at all. Still not called a touchdown. And Eddie Pinheiro had a rough day and a fumble in overtime. I'm not so concerned about the fumble in overtime because we shouldn't have even been in overtime. But on the positive side, Bryce Young played a really good game. I mean, really good. I mean, his stats don't light it up, but he plays good. Like I said, if you actually watch the games, he played good. He had almost 300 yards. Would have had it if there wasn't we had a lot of drops in this game, and if that was a touchdown. But Bryce threw a touchdown. Adam Thielen, which he had a good day, 8 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 12 carries, 43 yards. Bryce Young ran one in. That was a good run. Then he hit his little Sally. BYA. Tommy Trumbo was right behind Thielen, 5 catches, 77. Leggett, 4 catches, 53 yards. David Moore, 5 catches, 40 yards. Brooks had 3 catches, 23 yards. Jose Jewell led the team in tackles with 10. And he had a good game. He had a sack. Trevin Wallace also had a sack. Amari Bono had a sack. Jadeveon Clowney had a sack. 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 7 pass deflections. 6 QB hits. Xavier Woods had an interception, and Chow Smith-Wade had his first interception of his career. Eddie Pinheiro went 3 for 5. Like I said, 2 crucial missed field goals. 69,214 in attendance. Like I said, we should have won this game. We played better all around. I mean, it's just insane how we lost this game. We were a better team. We played better. We had a better game. Bryce played really good. Defense played good till later in the game. And, yeah, we should have won this game. Missed call, missed field goals. Should have won this game. But on to the next. Keep pounding. All right, moving on. We got a thriller between the Indianapolis Colts going to New England to take on the Patriots. The Colts improved to 6-7, trying to make a push for a wild card spot. Meanwhile, the Patriots dropped to 3-10. I mean, like I said last few weeks, probably the whole year actually, that, Patriots, you can't really disrespect them. Even though they're 3-10, they've been putting together some good games. Feels similar, and they got a bright future. And meanwhile, for the Colts, they're trying to sneak into the playoffs and make some noise. So with that being said, Anthony Richardson, he had a good game, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, but he also ran one in. Jonathan Taylor had 25 carries, 96 yards. Michael Pittman had 5 catches, 42 yards. Alec Pierce and Jonathan Taylor caught a touchdown. Zaire Franklin led the team in tackles with 12. Colts had 4 sacks, 1.5 by Zaire Franklin, 1 by Nick Cross, 1 by DeForest Buckner, and a half by Kwity Paye. 5 tackles for loss and 3 pass deflections. Julian Blackman had an interception and a 17-yard return. And Matt Gay went 1 for 1 on field goals. Longest was from 25. Patriots, at the end of the game, attempted a 68-yard field goal. Would have been an NFL record and a good win. But unfortunately, a couple feet short. But this was a good game. Back and forth. Colts got a touchdown late. They went for 2. Got it. And Drake May had a touchdown and an interception. One thing I've noticed about Drake May is his completion percentage is always high. And that's a good thing for a young quarterback. Ramondre Stevenson, 18 carries, 73 yards. Antonio Gibson ran one in. Hunter Henry had 7 catches, 75 yards. Austin Hooper caught a touchdown. Jabril Peppers had 9 tackles, led the team. Patriots had 0 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 8 pass deflections. Christian Ellis and Christian Gonzalez had interceptions. And Joey Sly went 3 for 5 on field goals, long from 54. And 64,626 people in attendance at this game. Like I said, it was low-key a thriller. Came down to the end. Back and forth scoring, especially late in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, the Colts got the win. All right, moving on. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers in a absolute shootout. This was the highest scoring game with the Steelers and the Bengals in their head-to-head history. They battled over 100 times, and this was their highest scoring one. Steelers got the win, 44-38. Wow. I mean, out of all the teams that put up 44 points, the Steelers. Russell Wilson, 414 yards, 3 touchdowns, 126 rating. Najee Harris ran one in. George Pickens had 3 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth also caught a touchdown, and Calvin Austin also caught a touchdown. Deshaun Elliott led the team in tackles with 11. Pittsburgh had 4 sacks, 2 by T.J. Watt, 1 by Cameron Hayward, and 1 by Nick Herbert. Herbig, 6 tackles for loss, 4 pass deflections. And Dante Jackson had an interception, but that was just like a tip. That wasn't a real interception. Chris Boswell, 3 for 4 on field goals, long for 50. And 66,112 people in attendance for this game. Joe Burrow, 3 touchdowns, interception, 309 yards. Chase Brown ran one in. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins scored. Andre Isilvas scored. Jermaine Pratt led the team in tackles with 13. Bengals had 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 pass deflections. Cam Taylor-Britt had a 51-yard pick 6 early in the game. And Evan McPherson 1 for 1 on field goal long from 38. This was a offensive shootout, which was crazy. I don't think anyone really expected this high scoring. But, the Bengals defense is bad. And it was just that kind of game with a lot of scoring, obviously. It's crazy that the Bengals are 4-8. Just crazy. Meanwhile, Steelers improved to 9-3. Bengals aren't completely out of it, but in that tough conference, it's not looking good for them. Meanwhile, for the Steelers, they're probably going to get the 3 or 4 seed. Probably the 3rd, I would guess. They're not touching Buffalo and Kansas City. And their other competition would probably be Houston. They'll probably be around Houston, so Pittsburgh, you're probably getting the 3rd seed. Moving on, we got the Los Angeles Chargers going to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Kirk Cousins had a really bad game, throwing like 4 interceptions, and the Chargers squeaked out a win here. Came down to the wire, as I figured. Gus Edwards led the team in rushing. He had 6 carries, 32 yards. Ladd McConkey, 9 catches, 117 yards. Troy Dye led the team in tackles with 14. Chargers had 1 sack. That was by Tier Tart. Excuse me. Chargers had 5 tackles for loss, 10 pass deflections, 4 QB hits. And Tareeb still had 2 interceptions and a pick 6. Derwin James had an interception. And Marcus May, who they just brought up a few days ago, had an interception. Cameron Dicker went 3 for 3 on field goals. And there were 72,139 people in attendance. Like I said, though, this was a pretty good game. Low-scoring game, defensive battle. Chargers generated more turnovers, which led to more points. Kirk Cousins threw 4 interceptions. Bijan had 26 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Ray McLeod, 4 catches, 95 yards. Right behind him, 9 catches, 86 yards by Drake London. And Caden Ellis had 5 tackles, led the team. Falcons had 5 sacks, 1 by Caden Ellis, 1 by David Onyemata, 2 by Arnold Ebiketie, and 1 by reading the wrong thing. 1 by Kentavious Street. 5 tackles for loss and 6 pass deflections. And Younghoe Koo went 2 for 3 on field goals. Like I said, though, this game was won in the trenches, and the Chargers got it done, improving to 8-4. Meanwhile, the Falcons dropped 6-6. Yes. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks going to New Jersey to take on the Jets. It's just so weird to me how they call them the New York Giants and the New York Jets, even though they're in Jersey. It's just weird. Seahawks improved to 7-5. Jets dropped to 3-9. Seahawks get the 26-21 point win. Like I said, Seahawks got the win. This game was back and forth. Rodgers didn't do too bad to start, but obviously didn't get the job done. 206 yards, 1 touchdown by Geno. Kenneth Walker led the team in rushing, 16 carries, 49 yards. Zach Charbonnet, he had a good game, ran 1 in. Jackson Smith, the Jigba, had 4 catches, 74 yards. A.J. Barner caught a touchdown. Laviska Shenault fumbled the ball. Dre Williams, Kenneth Walker fumbled the ball. Ernest Jones led the team in tackles with 8. Seattle had 2 sacks, both by Leonard Williams. He had a really good game. This was probably his best game with Seattle so far. You can make that argument this season. 4 tackles for loss and 3 pass deflections for Seattle. Leonard Williams also had a 92 yards pick 6. Boy, that was fun to watch, that pick 6. What's funny is how the play before the Jets couldn't connect on a touchdown. Then the very next play, Leonard Williams got a pick six. Jason Myers went 2 for 2 on field goals, long from 54, and 81,084 people in attendance. That's a lot. Meanwhile, for the Jets, 2 touchdowns and an interception for Rodgers. Breece Hall, 60 yards. Davante Adams caught a touchdown. Isaiah Davis caught a touchdown. And Quincy Williams and DJ Reed led the team in tackles with 7. Jets had 3 sacks, 1 by Quincy Williams and 2 by Will McDonald. 7 tackles for loss and 3 pass deflections. They also had no interceptions, and Andrews Carlson didn't attempt a field goal. Like I said, though, this game was back and forth for the most part. Jets dropped to 3-9. Seattle gets the job done on the road. Moving on, we got the Houston Texans going to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. This was some controversial things that came out of this game. Trevor Lawrence slid. Azeez Al-Shaair hit him, knocked him into concussion protocol, out for the game. A big fight happened. Azeez Al-Shaair was ejected, suspended, and fined. He was suspended for 3 games. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. But talking about the game, CJ Stroud threw a touchdown. He hasn't had the greatest year so far. But Joe Mixon had 20 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Nico Collins had 8 catches, 119 yards. Dalton Schultz caught a touchdown. Neville Hewitt led the team in tackles with 9. Houston had no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 5 pass deflections. Derek Stingley Jr. had an interception. And Kamari Fairbairn went 3 for 3 on field goals for Houston. There were 62,588 people in attendance. Houston didn't play their best game, but they got the job done. They are 8-5, playing a 2-10 team, so you do expect better, but they added another win to the win column. Meanwhile, for Jacksonville, Mac Jones came in early, threw 2 touchdowns, 235 yards. Travis Etienne had 13 carries, 46 yards. Parker Washington led the team in receiving with 6 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. also caught a touchdown with 4 catches, 76 yards. Darnell Savage led the team in tackles with 7. Jaguars had 2 sacks, 1 by Josh Hines-Allen, 1 by Trayvon Walker. 5 tackles for loss and 6 pass deflections. Cam Little went 2 for 3 on field goals, long from 33. Like I said, though, you expect Houston to play better in this kind of game. 7-5 versus 2-9 team. That has a lost season. Gonna fire their coach soon. You expect better from a playoff contender. But Houston got the job done. Next up, we got the Cardinals and the Vikings. This one was a thriller. Vikings win their 5th straight. Sam Darnold led the comeback. Kyler Murray had a touchdown and 2 interceptions, 260 yards. James Conner led the team in rushing with 17 carries, 68 yards. Trey McBride led the team in receiving, 12 catches, 96 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. caught a touchdown. And Mack Wilson Sr. and Budda Baker led the team in tackles with 7. Cardinals had 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, and 3 pass deflections. And Chad Ryland went 5 for 6 on field goals. Wow, that's a lot of field goals. That's 15 points worth of field goals. Cardinals basically only had 1 touchdown in this game then. 66,873 people in attendance. Yeah, I don't know why the Cardinals are not scoring touchdowns, but they almost won. Meanwhile, Sam Darnold threw 2 touchdowns. He also led the team in rushing, which is embarrassing. Justin Jefferson, 7 catches, 99 yards, just short of 100. Johnny Moon caught the touchdown, and Aaron Jones caught the touchdown. Aaron Jones had a bad game, but stars have bad games sometimes. It happens. Blake Cashman led the team in tackles with 11. Minnesota had 1 sack, and that was by Jonathan Greenard from Houston. 5 tackles for loss and 7 pass deflections. Shaquille Griffin and Byron Murphy Jr. both had interceptions for the Vikings. John Parker Roma with 3 for 4 on field goals, long from 55. Like I said, though, good game. This came down to the last drive. Cardinals trying to move down the field to win it. Vikings also clutched up on the drive before that. This was a good game between two, good teams. Cardinals looking to make the playoffs, potentially win the division. And Vikings are, looking to make a deep playoff run. So this was a good game. Moving on, we got an absolute BTA. The Washington Commanders 42-19 win over the Titans. Boy, this was a blowout. Got real ugly for Tennessee real quick. Will Levis threw 2 touchdowns, 212 yards. Tony Pollard only had 8 carries, 35 yards. I mean, you're not going to run the ball much when you're down like that for most of the game. I'll tell you what, though. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine might be one of the most underrated receivers in the league because he's been cooking. 3 catches, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was obviously the only player to find the end zone for Tennessee, probably all season. Daryl Worley led the team in tackles with 17. Tennessee had they had 2 sacks, 1.5 by Arden Key, and a half by Kenneth Murray Jr., the linebacker. 3 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections. Amani Hooker had an interception. Nick Folk went 2 for 2 on field goals, long from 44. 63,144 people in attendance. Meanwhile, for the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had a good game. Only 5 incompletions. Brian Robinson Jr. ran 1 in, 16 carries, 103 yards. Chris Rodriguez Jr. ran 1 in. Jaden Daniels ran 1 in. Terry McLaurin caught 2 touchdowns. Zach Ertz caught a touchdown. And Mike Sainristil had 7 tackles, led the team for the Commanders. Commanders had 2 sacks, a half by Clelin Ferrell and Daron Payne, and 1 by Frankie Luvu, former Panther. 3 tackles for loss and 1 pass deflections. And Zane Gonzalez went 0 for 2 on field goals for the Commanders, but obviously it didn't really matter. Like I said, this was a complete blowout between a team who just took a loss to Dallas coming back. Now they take it out on a rebuilding team. All right, moving on, we got the Los Angeles Rams getting a 21-14 win over the Saints. Me personally, I'm glad the Rams won this game. They improved to 6-6. Matthew Stafford, 10 incompletions, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kyren Williams had a really good game, 15 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Blake Corum got some action. Puka Nacua caught a touchdown. Demarcus Robinson caught a touchdown. Christian Roseboom had 12 tackles, led the team. Rams had no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 6 pass deflections. Joshua Carty didn't attempt a field goal. 70,006 people in attendance. Matthew Stafford and Kyren Williams led this offense. Got the win, which this game was like low scoring in the first half, wasn't it? Obviously, the Panthers game was on at this time. But this game was pretty low scoring in the first half, but it turned out to be decent scoring. Meanwhile, for Derek Carr, 184 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara had a good game, 23 carries, 112 yards. Taysom Hill had 5 catches, 37 yards. Marquez Valdez-Scantling caught a touchdown. Boys, he had some games in New Orleans since he got there. Ugo Amadi led the team in tackles with 9. Saints had 2 sacks, 1 by Nathan Shepard and Brian Brees out of Clemson. 2 tackles for loss and 1 pass deflection. Blake Grupe went 2 for 3 on field goals, long for 54. Like I said, though, this game was low scoring to start for sure. Here, let me actually see. Yeah, it was 6-0 at the end of the first half, but Los Angeles scored all their points in the second half, 7 in the third quarter, 14 in the fourth, to get the win over New Orleans. Eagles and Ravens now. Eagles got the win 24-19 to improve to 10-2, and Ravens dropped to 8-5. Philadelphia had a really good defense in this game, and Justin Tucker, man, I don't know what's going on with him, but hopefully he gets it together. 118 yards and 1 touchdown for Jalen Hurts, but it was a Saquon Barkley show. 23 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts also ran 1 in. A.J. Brown had 5 catches, 66 yards. Dallas Goedert had a touchdown for Philly. And Zach Bond, who has earned a role in this Phillies defense, led the team in tackles with 13. Philly had 3 sacks, a half by Jaleel Hunt, Zach Bond, and one by Nolan Smith Jr. and Jalen Carter. 5 tackles for loss, 4 pass deflections. Jake Elliott went 1 for 1 on field goals from 35, and 71,344 people in attendance for this game. Meanwhile, for the Ravens, 2 touchdowns, 237 yards for Lamar. Derrick Henry, 19 carries, 82 yards. Lamar ran 79 yards right behind him. Zay Flowers led the team in receiving, 3 catches, 74. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely both caught touchdowns. Roquan Smith led the team in tackles with 11. Ravens had 2 sacks, a half by Marlon Humphrey and Roquan Smith, and 1 by Broderick Washington. 5 tackles for loss and 2 pass deflections. And Justin Tucker went 2 for 4 on field goals. Like I said, though, Eagles had a really good defensive game, and they got the win here over the Ravens. This was a good game. Obviously, the Panthers were playing during this game, but from what I've seen, this was a good game. All right, next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers going to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Niners dropped to 5-7, and the Bills improved to 10-2. This was a blowout. Niners sucked. Shit hit the fan for them this year. Brock Purdy, 94 yards. Jordan Mason, 13 carries, 78 yards. By the way, hopefully McCaffrey makes a recovery and comes back stronger than ever next year. Prayers for him. Isaac Guerrero scored a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, I don't care. He might be the best receiver on the Niners this year. I'm so serious. 3 catches, 56 yards, led the team. And Jair Brown led the team in tackles with 8. Niners had no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 pass deflections. Jake Moody 1 for 3 on field goal. This was just a terrible game for the Niners. Another one that they have this year. 70,437. So I guess they're another version of the Dolphins in the cold, but they have been all year. Josh Allen, only 4 incompletions, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. James Cook, 14 carries, 107 yards, ran 1 in. Ray Davis also ran 1 in. Josh Allen also ran 1 in. That was so cool, that hook and ladder play they did. He threw it to Cooper. Cooper tossed it back, and Allen dove, ran it in for the pylon. Dawson Knox, 2 catches, 56. And Terrell Bernard led the team in tackles with 9. Happy to see Matt Milano back. Buffalo had 1 sack. That was by Greg Rousseau. And 5 tackles for loss and 1 pass deflection. Tyler Bass missed a field goal, which it was snowing, so it's hard to do that. I'm going to cut the kicker slack in this game, even though you'll have to do that in January, especially Bass. But this was a good game. Blowout. Niners didn't match up at all well against the Bills, and the Bills got a dominating victory. And then finally, we got Monday Night Football between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. A lot of people said this game wasn't going to be that good. I thought it was going to be decent, but boy, this was fireworks. We had a 93-yard touchdown, multiple 70-plus touchdowns, and it's so funny to me. Jameis Winston had the most Jameis Winston game ever. He had 497 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, and 2 of those were pick sixes. Jerome Ford led the team in rushing, 9 carries, 41. Jerry Jeudy had a monster game against his former team. 9 catches, 235 yards, and a touchdown. David Njoku caught 2 touchdowns. Nick Chubb caught a touchdown. And Jordan Hicks had led the team in tackles with 12. Cleveland had no sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 6 pass deflections. Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome had interceptions. And Dustin Hopkins went 1 for 2 for field goals. There were 68,306 people in attendance. Meanwhile, for the Broncos, Bo Nix, a touchdown and 2 interceptions, 294 yards. Even though this isn't the best stat line, he did have a good game. I was impressed with how he played. Jaleel McLaughlin led the team in rushing with 14 carries, 84 yards. Marvin Mims Jr., every time he gets a ball, he makes a play. He had a 93-yard touchdown, 3 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Cortland Sutton also over 100 yards, 6 catches, 102 yards. Levi Wallace got toasted. Cody Barton led the team in tackles with 8. And Denver had 3 sacks, one by Jonah Ellis, Jonathan Cooper, and Nick Bonito. Bonito's been having a good year. 2 tackles for loss and 12 pass deflections. Nick Bonito had a 71-yard pick six. Jaquan McMillan had a 44-yard pick six, and Cody Barton had an interception. Will Lutz went 2 for 2 on field goals. This game was fireworks. A lot of explosive plays, big touchdowns, and Denver gets the win. Football this week, we finished up the regular season with rivalry week. And boy, that was the craziest rivalry week we've seen. I don't know how to say that word. Don't judge me. May have seen in years for sure. First up, Michigan and Ohio State. Michigan pulls off the upset in the Buckeyes Stadium. And then they plant a flag, and that causes a brawl, pepper spray, and everything. And then in my UNC game, we fell short by 5 points. They tried to plant the flag, and J.J. Jones came in defense. And then there was the Arizona State Sun Devils. They tried to plant something in there. And then there's another one. I think BYU game, there was a fight. It was a crazy, crazy rivalry week. And it's going to be very entertaining to see how the first ever 12-team college football playoff goes out. That's going to be it for today's episode. Let me know what you guys want to see in future episodes and how your team has done so far this year. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Keep pounding.